Hey, podcast friends. This is Dr. Steve Hewlett with the podcast, Simple Healthy Choices for Weight Loss, where every week we help people who have realized that as their health has been declining over the years, the number of medications they are being prescribed is increasing. We want to help you reverse this health path so you can live the vibrant, pain-free, and hopefully medication-free life you deserve to live. If you'd like even more information on this topic, you can go to Amazon or Audible and pick up my book, Your Plate is Your Fate. And if you think my book helps you on your new health path, please tell your friends and leave a review where you purchased it. Hey, in this episode, I am wanting to address again another question that I get asked a lot. And that question is, how do you read a food label? How do you know what ingredients are on this list? What ones are good for you? What ones are bad for you? How do I know just by looking at a label that this is something I should eat or something I should not eat? And this is really an in-depth question. And so I'm going to try to just kind of take the most common things that people have to deal with and just so you kind of understand. And a good example, just remember that a food label is marketing. That's all it is. And marketing is when they market the product to try to get someone else, a client, patient, whoever, to buy that product. So a food label is trying to get you to buy their product. And then the ingredients that are in the food are actually made so you continue to be hungry, so you continue to buy their product. This isn't bad-mouthing food companies or anything because, they aren't forcing you to eat this stuff. All they're doing is they're a business. They're trying to make money. And so if you realize that when you're looking at these labels, it's going to help you a lot in trying to determine whether something's going to be healthy for you or not. And a good example of this is the whole fat-free crave or the sugar-free crave. And this happened because, I don't know if you remember, but I remember my wife and I when this whole, fat's what makes you fat, fat's what makes you have cardiovascular disease and all this incorrect information that we got because of our new dietary guidelines that were written incorrectly. In fact, our food pyramid is totally upside down. But back when this happened, my wife and I just got married. We got married in 86. And I remember it was 1986. It was shortly after that all this fat-free stuff started coming out. It's like fat-free this, fat-free that, stay away from fat. And I remember us walking into the grocery store, and right as soon as the doors opened, there was a great big display. It had all these great big fruit-filled pastries. And all across them, they said fat-free. We were amazed. It's like, this is crazy. We would get these fruit-filled pastries and just gorge on them. I mean, they were just wonderful. And we thought, I can't believe that this tastes this good and it's fat-free. Well, we weren't the only ones who thought this, because that's what happened. Once we went to fat-free, if you've listened to some of my other podcasts, when they start taking fat out of products, they start putting sugar back into them. Because you have to, if you take the fat and the fiber out, you lose the flavor. And so they added the flavor back with sugar, which is why everyone is so addicted to sugar. And you can tell this if you go, since we're talking about labels, go to a grocery store and get the exact same manufacturer of a salad dressing and get the exact same brand, what kind of salad dressing you like, and say ranch, and get a regular ranch bottle, get a low-fat ranch, and get a fat-free ranch. And turn it over and look at how much sugar is in each one of those products. Same company, same type of salad dressing, everything. And this isn't just salad dressings. This is just an easy way to make the example. And when you look on the back of it, you'll find that the regular ranch has X amount of sugar in it. The low fat has more, and the fat-free has even more. So as they took fat out, they put sugar in, and now we know that it's actually the sugar and the carbohydrates that are actually causing our obesity crisis, our type 2 diabetes crisis, and our metabolic syndrome crisis, because they have convinced everybody through their labels, through their commercials, through their marketing, that carbohydrates are supposed to be good for you and fat is supposed to be bad. So as I go through this, just kind of remember that food labels are marketing. They aren't here to sell health. They aren't trying to make you healthy. They're trying to make a dollar. They are a business. And we even found this again with a sugar-free or fat-free when we used to go, and now we used to look at the candies like on Suckers or Jolly Ranchers, and they would advertise fat-free. Well, duh. Those have never had fat in them because it's solid sugar. So there's not going to be fat and sugar. And like I was talking about those fruit pastries, we went and we looked at some gel or some pudding one time, the boxes, and they had a regular pudding and they had a fat-free pudding. And I thought, well, what is the difference here? It's just a powder. So I turned around and looked at it. The only difference between regular pudding and fat-free pudding was in the directions on how to make it. With the regular pudding, it said to make it with milk. And with the fat-free, it said to make it with skim milk. That was the only difference. And they increased the price for the fat-free pudding. It had nothing to do with the product itself. So again, another example, made with real olive oil or avocado oil. We know, and I'll explain a little bit later, how avocado oil is very good for you. That is one of the good oils that you can have. Avocado oil, coconut oil, and olive oil. Those are the three really good oils that you can eat. And so now companies know that too. So on their marketing, on the front of their labels, we'll find products that say made with real avocado oil. But then when you turn it around, you look at the ingredients, the very first ingredient on the list is going to be something like canola oil or safflower oil or sunflower oil. There's some kind of oil other than avocado, and way down on towards the bottom of the ingredient list, you'll see avocado oil listed. Now, the reason that is when you look at a food label, the way it's supposed to be is the very first ingredient on that label. That's the main ingredient. That is the highest percentage of that in that product. And then it just goes down by percentage. So the very, very last ingredient on that label, that has the lowest percentage. So even if avocado oil is way down at the very, very bottom, they still have avocado oil in it. So on the front of the label, they can say made with real avocado oil, but it's a lie. It's not a lie, but they're trying to sway you into eating their product and making you think that it's healthy for you. And so there's a lot of other things that are in these ingredient lists. And one of them are trans fats. Now we know, I just did in episode 21, I did a whole episode just on fats, on what's the difference between a saturated fat, unsaturated fat, polyunsaturated fat, monounsaturated, trans fats, what's the difference in all these? And so if I won't go into that in this talk, if you want to hear about that, you could go back to my last podcast. But just real quick, trans fats, they've already found, and trans fats is just when you're transforming an unsaturated fat into a saturated fat by bubbling hydrogen through it. And again, I explained this in the last video. But now they found out by making these fake fats where they're actually trying to make a saturated fat from a polyunsaturated fat, they've actually made it worse. And they found that these trans fats were causing all kinds of vascular and cardiovascular disease and conditions. So they've said that they've taken trans fats out of everything. However, they haven't, because these trans fats are still in refined oils. They're in the emulsifiers. And an emulsifier is something that, if you've ever seen oil and water together, they separate out. So you need an emulsifier to help bring those two so that they make a good smooth solution or suspension. And that's an emulsifier. Well, a lot of our emulsifiers are also made from trans fats. A lot of the flavoring, the artificial flavoring that they use, are made from trans fats, and a lot of the artificial colors are also made from these trans fats. So if they're not using the trans fats as the fat, they're using it for other things. So you're still getting these trans fats in these artificial flavors, artificial colors, these emulsifiers, things that they don't have to put all the ingredients of those things. All they have to say is, this is an artificial flavor or this is an artificial color. And if you want to know more about this, there is a fantastic book by a woman by the name of Vani Hari. Vani, and her last name is Hari, Hari. And the name of this book is Feeding You Lies: How to Unravel the Food Industry's Playbook and Reclaim Your Health. And she goes deep into all the different ingredients that are in our foods, why some are good, why some are bad. And she actually goes as far as going to the heads, the CEOs of a lot of these food companies, and telling them, we have evidence that this is causing a lot of cardiovascular disease and XYZ, and trying to get them to take these ingredients out. And she's actually done a good job. There have been several companies that have listened to what she's had to say and taken some of these bad ingredients out. So again, that's Vani Hari, and the name is called Feeding You Lies, is a book, and I highly recommend it. And also, as far as talking about oils, if you really want to get in depth on oils, and I should have said this in my podcast that I talked about this, but there's another fantastic book by two different people, by Ivor Cummings and by Dr. Jeffrey Gerber. And the name of this book is called Eat Rich, Live Long. Use the power of low carb and keto for weight loss and great health. And this is another great book that totally explains all about these different fats and what's good and what's bad and what makes them good and bad. So for this, since we're just talking about labels, I just wanted to let you know there are other books, other sources you can go to get more information on the same thing. But as far as oils, the first thing you want to talk about is the seed oils and the vegetable oils. And these are the ones that everybody brings up. Are seed oils good? Are vegetable oils good? And the fact is, just like we said with fructose, with fruit juice, eat the fruit, stay away from the fruit juice, because they get rid of all the healthy things and they combine it into just this concentrated fructose, which is horrible for your body. Same thing with the oils, seed oils and vegetables. Eat the seeds, eat the vegetables, but stay far away from these oils. And it's mainly because of all the chemicals that go into trying to draw the oil out of these seeds and try to draw the oil out of these vegetables. And I'll talk about all the different ingredients, all the different chemicals that they put in these just to get these oils out in just a little bit. But as far as seeds themselves are fine. Flax seeds are wonderful, and that's a good source of omega-3 fatty acids, which are your anti-inflammatory fatty acids, like I talked about in the last podcast. And pumpkin seeds. Pumpkin seeds are a good source of protein. It's a healthy fat also. And it also has carotenoids and vitamin E and other things, vitamins and minerals that your body needs. As far as vegetable oils, it's the same thing. The processing it takes to get this oil out of these vegetables is horrible. So the only real healthy oils that you should have is coconut oil is one. And these are made up, coconut oil has medium chain triglyceride, is a small version of fat. Basically, you can think of that, but it's smaller, so it's a lot easier for your body to metabolize. And so it's different than the other fats, but it has the MCT oil, which is good. And it also has the thermogenic effect. And the thermogenic effect, remember, it helps your body produce heat. And by your body producing heat, that's one of the ways that you increase your metabolism. If you're saying, oh, yeah, this is going to increase your metabolism, that's one that does it. It helps your body produce heat, which means it's using more energy. So it takes the fat out of your fat cells and can help turn that into heat energy, which is what you really want to do. So you get rid of your fat cells and you produce heat, so you increase your metabolism. So coconut oil does that. It also has some antimicrobial properties, and it also helps with gut health. It's good for the bacteria that are in your gut. Another good healthy oil is avocado oil. And again, these are essential fats that for your whole body health, because avocado oil also can have omega-3s in it. And it's also a significant source of glutathione. And glutathione is an agent. It's a substance that your liver has, and that substance is used to help detoxify things that you're putting in your mouth, basically. So you put these chemicals in your mouth by cellular metabolism, but you put chemicals in your mouth and your body is trying to get rid of them. And this is one of the major ingredients that's in your liver, and you have glutathione stores, and it attaches those so it can help get rid of these chemicals. And an example is Tylenol overdose. When you have a Tylenol overdose, that's one of the things that when Tylenol is being metabolized through your liver, one of the metabolites, the active metabolites that's formed, is extremely toxic to the liver. So the liver will take glutathione and attach it to that liver toxic chemical, so it keeps it from killing your liver, and then you can excrete it. The only problem is you only have small amounts of glutathione stores. And so if you have like a Tylenol overdose and you overwhelm that and you deplete your glutathione stores, now you go into liver damage. So glutathione is extremely important to use. So that's another reason why avocado oil is good. And remember, food companies are trying to sell you a product. Okay. Their job is not to make you healthy. And so they are also, however, major funders for a lot of these food studies that go on. So that's why when you're saying, how am I supposed to know what's right? Because, this company says this and this says this. One easy way to know if someone is falsifying some information is to look and see, where's the money going? Where's this leading? Follow the money. And if somebody is making money off a product, it's because they're attracting you to it with their marketing, and then they're keeping you hungry so you keep coming back for more. Okay. Has nothing to do with your health. And another example, on the front of a label may say made with real fruits, but that doesn't mean that you have little chunks of real fruit in there. That could mean, and usually does mean, that they made this very extremely concentrated fruit juice, that they boil it down to just this sugary syrup, and then they put that syrup into the food. So just because it was made from real fruit, it has been torn up so bad that now, instead of being healthy for you like an actual fruit is, now it's bad for you. It's starting tearing up your blood vessels and heart and everything else, like we've talked about in these other podcasts. So just because it says fruit juice concentrate doesn't mean it's really fruit. Just because it says that it's, sugar-free or fat-free or has avocado oil, that doesn't necessarily mean anything, basically. So you have to actually look at the ingredient lists themselves. And remember, the main ingredient is going to be the first one, and the least ingredient is going to be the very last one. And a lot of things also that say sugar-free, also, they may be actual sugar-free, but they still have sugar alcohols in them. And by having the sugar alcohols, it still increases your glucose and it still increases your insulin. So sugar-free doesn't mean there's no sugar in this. It just means they don't have actual sugar in that. And another example is high fructose corn syrup. Food companies are promoting that high fructose corn syrup is actually good, that fructose is actually good for you because it's low on the glycemic scale and it does not induce insulin release. But as I've already given an entire talk back on the why fructose is poison, and you can look back on that podcast also. But the fact that it doesn't increase your glucose levels and the fact that it doesn't stimulate insulin has nothing to do why the fructose is poison. It has to do with how your body's trying to get rid of this massive onslaught of fructose that we have now because they put sugar in everything. They put high fructose corn syrup in everything. And again, sugar and high fructose corn syrup, the exact same thing. Even though people try to tell you that high fructose corn syrup is different, it's not. Sugar is 50% sucrose, 50% glucose. High fructose corn syrup, the exact same glucose and fructose, but you have a little bit more of the fructose, which is actually even worse for you because of the toxicity that fructose does inside your body. And they make it very hard on this. So when you're reading a label and you're trying to see, is there any sugar in this? There are 58 different names for sugar. So when you're looking at a label, you can't just look for sugar. You have to look for anything that has the word sugar in it. You have to look for anything that says nectar or malt or syrup or molasses or cane or caramel or fructose or maltol or dextrane, dietase, fruit juice, honey, sorbitol, treacle. There are so many different names for sugar, and it's because they know that people realize that sugar is not good for you. So if they can hide that in the label with all these different ingredients, you're going to buy their product, even though you don't really realize what you're buying. And so be careful of those. Another big thing is maltodextrin. Maltodextrin is something that they put in so many products. You go to a food label. When you buy your food now, look on back and look at all the different products that have all these things in it. Things that say sugar-free, fat-free, has maltodextrin in it. Maltodextrin is a substance that they add to a lot of different things. They even added to like stevia and erythritol and monk fruit. So the good artificial sweeteners that they have out there, a lot of times they're way too sweet. And so they dilute them down with maltodextrin, which actually just turned it from a good artificial sweetener into a bad artificial sweetener. Maltodextrin is a substance that it causes cramping, it causes bloating, it can cause difficulty breathing, skin rashes, and skin irritation. So maltodextrin is something that you want to stay far away from. This is something that is also created from corn. And this is, if you look at something like Pillsbury sugar-free brownies, and you look on the back of that, you're going to see maltodextrin. And maltodextrin actually is horrible. Now, this does affect the glycemic index of the food because like glycemic index of sugar, okay, a glycemic index means how much glucose is in this product, basically. So a glucose has a glycemic index of 100. Sugar, since sugar is half glucose and half fructose, sugar only has a glycemic index of 52. But maltodextrin, remember glucose is 100. Maltodextrin has a glycemic index of anywhere from 105 to 185. So it has even more glucose in it than regular glucose does because it's a couple of glucose molecules put together. So anything with maltodextrin in it, you've got to stay away from it. This substance is horrible, and it's in a lot of your processed foods. The other thing is artificial sweeteners. So the artificial sweeteners, there's a lot of misinformation out about artificial sweeteners too, because when the companies are trying to go, when they're trying to get you to lose weight, they try to tell you that it's all about calories in versus calories out. That is incorrect. That makes no sense whatsoever. Our bodies are not like machines where you put in this much energy and you burn this much energy off. That's why we have our whole metabolism, all the thermogenic effects, our exercise, everything that we do that increases our metabolism. When you eat things, artificial sweeteners, it may not have the calories, but it definitely can still stimulate an appetite. So that's why there's been no studies that ever shown that artificial sweeteners help lose weight, because when people eat that and they get that taste of sweet, that causes their insulin levels to go up a little bit, and that makes them start getting hungry, and then you're going to start eating. So it all depends on what you eat afterwards, whether you're going to be losing weight or not. And so some of these artificial sweeteners that you really want to stay away from is like acesulfame, which is what's in Equal, and aspartame, which is in Equal or NutraSweet. Another one is like Sweet and Low with a saccharin, or sucralose, which is in Splenda. These are ones that you're really going to want to stay away from because all they do is they make you hungrier, and these are all chemicals. All these things they're just chemically made. So again, you're putting chemicals in your body when your body is asking for nutrients, the nutrients that's going to help it heal, grow, thrive, and survive. And instead, you're giving it chemicals that it's saying, oh, wait, I can't do anything with this, so I'm going to have to try to get rid of it, try to eliminate it out of my body. Now, the ones that don't do that aren't chemicals, that are actually vegetation, actual plants, are stevia, which is an herb that you can totally grow by yourself. And just, again, make sure that if you get a stevia product, look on the back and make sure that the companies did not put dextrin in with it, because a lot of times they want to do that, or maltodextrin in it. Monk fruit is another one. That's a good natural sweetener. But again, you have to look, on the bag and make sure they don't put maltodextrin in that. And erythritol is another one. This is found naturally in fruits and in fermented foods. And erythritol is fine, even though it got this bad flack. I think we've already talked about that, about the poor information that's out there on erythritol. But no, erythritol is still one of the good artificial sweeteners if you need an artificial sweetener. Now, the next thing, so that's artificial sweeteners. Stay away from anything that says aspartame, saccharin, or sucralose. Stay away from those. Artificial colors is another one that people think are totally benign, and they totally are not, because artificial colors is just a bunch of chemicals. Some of these have up to 100 chemicals that are all put together to get that right flavor or that right color to make you want their product. And these artificial colors, a lot of these are made from petroleum. So it's actually oil-based, and a lot of these artificial colors, and they're really starting to see a lot more of this now, actually cause hyperactivity and food allergies. And they're especially seeing this in children. So if you have a child who's extremely hyper, and a good example is red dye number 40. So red dye number 40 and yellow dyes number 5 and number 6. Those two things are in almost every product you have. If you've got something that's red, purple, orange, anything, or any hue of those, there's going to be a red dye in it. And these have been known to cause extreme hyperactivity and food allergies in children. In fact, one of my technicians that I work with, she said that her little brother and sister, they were extremely hyper, like jumping, just bouncing off the walls. They had been hyper for a long time, and they were trying to figure out what to do. What can we do? What medication can we put them on to decrease their hyperactivity? And they actually talked to a nutritionist who explained to them about red dye causing hyperactivity. And so they took all the red dye out of their nutrition, the things that the parents were feeding the kids, and their hyperactivity totally stopped. So they are just totally calm right now. And that's what you need to do. You need to actually see somebody do that. And that'll really cement that firm in your mind that is like, oh my gosh, you mean that I was going to take a medication for something that really all I did to do is start eating healthy, and that would have taken care of it? And that's what all my podcasts are about. If you just eat healthy, you're going to avoid all these medications. You're going to avoid type 2 diabetes and Alzheimer's and all these disease states and hospitalizations and medications just by eating healthy. And anything with an artificial color or an artificial flavor, just realize these are made up of a ton of different ingredients. And as far as artificial flavors, something you need to think about is if they have to put an artificial flavor into something, that means that underlying product probably tastes pretty bad. So anything artificial, you need to stay away from it. And some of these ingredients that are in these are things like synthetic chemicals, solvents, preservatives like BHA, propylene glycol, MSG, parabens, and all these other chemicals go into making an artificial flavor or an artificial color. So all this is more chemicals that your body has to deal with, and it is causing damage in your bodies. So really, in general, the main thing I want to get through to you is if you have to read a label to see if something's good for you, maybe it's not. Chances are it's not. Think about it. What are all the ingredients on a label on a piece of steak? What are all the ingredients on a label on a piece of chicken or on fish or on a piece of fruit or on a piece of vegetable? What ingredients are on those? There aren't any. So if you can stick with having a label that only has 1 to 3 ingredients on it, that's going to be a lot healthier than getting anything that has a label on it that has all these chemicals that they put in these and all these basically lies that they're telling you, saying that their stuff is healthy. When anytime you put all these chemicals on your body, it automatically means it is not healthy. So the down and dirty is if you really want to eat healthy, eat the things that don't have the labels on them. But if they do have labels and that's something, make sure that you look at the actual ingredient list. Just because it says made with avocado oil on the front, turn it over and see, well, how much? Is this mainly canola oil and safflower oil and all these other extremely horrible vegetable oils and seed oils? Or is it, a great company like Mark Sisson's company, Primal Kitchen? Primal Kitchen is one that truly does use avocado oil in their products. So that's one that you can go with if you want, a certain condiment. Primal Kitchen is a good one. And again, it's Mark Sisson is the owner of that company. And I have no ties with him whatsoever. I'm just wanting to help you understand when you go through. And again, you can avoid a lot of this by just shopping the perimeter of the store. That's where your real meat is. That's where your real fruit is. That's where your real vegetables is. That's when your whole dairy is. And you want whole milk. You do not want skim milk or 2% or 1% because that's just more chemicals that they're putting in there. And really even almond milk and things like that. It's just more chemicals that they're putting in these products to try to get fat out, which is there's no reason for, but now they're putting in the chemicals that are extremely dangerous to your bodies. So I won't keep rambling on. You kind of got the gist of what I'm talking about. If you have to read a label, maybe you should put that back on the shelf and get something else. But that's the main story for the ingredient labels now. And I hope that helped in some way. And I just want to thank you so much again for listening and have a great week. And remember, make simple, healthy choices to live a quality life. If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the subscribe button below and be sure to tell someone else who may want to change their health path as well. And don't forget, you can also purchase my book, Your Plate is Your Fate, on Amazon or Audible. And if you do, please leave a review.